Wow. Does internet make us happy? Simple question. Probably very complex answer, knowing Luciano Floridi a little bit. Introducing a new concept. I introduced it earlier about gluing and ungluing the world. But I'm so happy to be able to introduce you, Luciano. Do you want to read it yourself?
Of course.
No.
It's lazy.
Yeah, it's amazing. So we know each other for a long time. It says here, you're the professor of philosophy and ethics of information at the University of Oxford. And I just want to emphasize the joy that we had visiting with our team, your people, when we started the research on machine intelligence. I think it helped, it was fun, but it also helped to craft our ideas about what to do and what to write about. So thank you for that. That's it.
That's it.
Are you okay with that?
It's my turn now?
It's your turn.
Do I have to work?
Yes, you have to work.
I knew it, okay.
Luciano.
Out. We have a little surprise for you later with the technicians. We organize something for you. It's a surprise. We didn't tell you, otherwise what a surprise would that be? Happiness online. This is your chance to leave the room. Because we had to do some work, and if this is going to be a bit heavy going, tough, you know who is responsible. Is sitting right there. So don't blame the philosopher, I'm just a messenger. He invited me. So everything started a long time ago with a mistake. And the idea that I want to share with you is based on that linguistic mistake. That linguistic mistake caused the creation of a word, to cleave, that really is mysterious. Because he has these two meanings, and I promise the other slides will not be so full of text, but no, these are the roots. On the one hand, it means to split or sever something, cut. But then look at the other meaning, to stick and adhere strongly. So you cut and paste. Not even Theresa May is that confused. So how do you do this? How can you possibly organize something that cut and paste? Well, that comes because of two different words that in the end ended up by being spelled in the same way. And so today we have this wonderful word in English, which means two opposite things, to cut and paste. But, of course, cut and paste. Fast forward a few centuries, and all of a sudden you can use that to describe the digital power. The digital power is to cut and paste, and not what Microsoft allows you to do. No, way more deeply. It cuts and pastes things that we have always, or at least us in this room, and sometimes always as in generations always, for centuries, sometimes for millennia, considered to be a block. Well, the digital splits that block. And again, us, or maybe for centuries or even millennia, we have considered them separate, and yet the digital puts them together. Now, if you have this idea clear in mind, the next 10 minutes is just a little walk to show you what we cut and paste conceptually, and how that leads to a certain understanding of what happiness could be online, through the internet, digital happiness. So what I'm going to show you is basically a gallery of things that we have first cut, presence and location. Of course, the digital cuts that into two, but even my grandfather would have considered that inconceivable. You are where you interact, and you interact where you are. You can't be in one place and yet be present elsewhere. Now, if you think of that in terms of, oh, the bank is closing the local branch, it's because the local branch of the bank is a location place. It's not a presence place. So the local branch of a bank is a location place looking for a presence which is no longer there, is online. That's why we're closing it. Law and territoriality, of course. But this has been with us for centuries. It's the Westphalian organization, at least in this corner of the world. My place, my rules, your place, your rules. It took quite a while to get that sort of agreement, but for the past few centuries, that's exactly the way we work in Europe. Unfortunately, cyberspace doesn't look that way at all. So anyone with a right to be forgotten, etc. debate knows that these two have been detached. Again, just for the past generation, it would have been inconceivable. Ownership and usage. Netflix, anyone? Airbnb? Uber? Who needs to own anything in order to make sure that you make business out of something else? So we have split that, although only yesterday I use what is mine, you use what is yours, and it's very hard to understand how that could be mix and match. Not least because ownership has been classically defined in terms of my right to forbid anyone from using what is mine. Usage, possession. Agency and intelligence, I know that you heard exactly the opposite, but that's the way we are going forward. We have split the ability to perform a task successfully from any need to be intelligent. Because the iPhone I left outside wins anyone in this room at chess, and it has the intelligence of my grandmother's fridge. Now, 0. And that's why it is so good. In fact, actually, for anyone interested here in AI in the future, that's exactly where you should be looking. Where could I split the need of intelligence from the ability to perform that task successfully? Because if I can split that task there, that is the next business I'm going to be in. But it's not just about splitting, I told you, it's cleaving. So it's also about joining production and consumption. This has been a long time ago, since the 80s, but I put 2 pluses there because for 90% of our life on this planet, actually that has been always together. It's only in the last 10,000 years, which for a philosopher is really yesterday, that we have lived in a society where the two were split, namely from agricultural society onwards, 10K away, where I grow potatoes and you make something made of iron and we exchange. But before that point, we were eating what we were able to hunt or find. And we did that for about 90,000 years. 90. So it's only recently that we reunified this. Authenticity and memory. Well, that's the blockchain. How does that work? Well, clearly, memory, the digital, is not authentic unless you have a blockchain. In which case, you can know exactly where it comes from. And like an old painting, you know the history of. You know exactly that that is a Caravaggio because you have a record that leads all the way to the master painting it with all the chain of causations and records. And information and identity. Well, that's us, but surely in the past, no one thought in terms of, certainly not the great philosopher, in terms of our personal identity as our information. And yet, today, we are all data subjects because we have unified this into a single block. And the offline and online. Well, who today still asks the question, are you online? If you ask that question, you must be from the 90s. Because today we all live OnLife, QR included, as you've seen. Meaning in that special space where a bit of everything is happening, a bit digital, a bit analog, and asking whether one is the other or not is a mistake. So this is a quick show of what we have cut and pasted in the past few years. And no wonder we are confused. I mean, this is essentially rewriting the history of our conceptual framework that we inherited for millennia of thinking about what is what. What about happiness then? In all this cutting and pasting together of different phenomena, and I know now you understand the mechanism, so I'm sure you can think of other ways of cutting and pasting, and you must have seen that those were 9, and we have 10 fingers, so I'm waiting for one more to come towards the end of the talk. So happiness on life. Well, there is one way of understanding happiness. It's not the only way, and I will produce another one later, but one way is the Aristotelian sense of happiness. Basically, you are like an animal, a plant, flourishing, being in good health, in a good balance, no more, no less, just right there. And the right there, I mean, 1,000 things for different flowers and different mangroves. Well, the mangrove, interestingly, doesn't live in the sea and it doesn't live in the river. It lives there where the water, sweet, mixes up with the salty water. It lives in the infosphere, with the online and offline and all those cut and paste. So really our happiness is the happiness of the mangrove, essentially. The special happiness in that special space where the digital meets the analog, where the online meets the offline, and where all that cuts and paste is happening at the same time. So here, in this special space, which is not salty and it's not sweet, remember, are you online, are you offline? 90s. Well, no, I'm a mangrove. I'm in this brackish water, the mix of sweet and salty. Well, to be a little bit fancy with the vocabulary, what is happiness there? The Greek word here is eudaimonia, now, which is this well-being, flourishing, being okay with your expectations, with your fears, not too many, not too few, with your hopes, etc. Well, that special form of balance, which requires quite a bit of wisdom, what is it there? Well, of course, we have some risks. Well, the risk here are that by being in this infosphere, by being online, we might not just migrate from one space to the other, we might actually escape from one space to the other. And therefore a certain absence from the world. Remember that this is also ICT, where I means information, communication technology, and you know, I know, that information consumes attention. It's an old story, we know that since a long time ago. If it consumes attention, well, that means that you are constantly asked to be absorbed there to the detriment of anything else. Hours and hours and hours spent doing something somewhere, not necessarily Facebook, but could be anything else. Well, that's exactly not the sort of flourishing that we are talking about. And it could be a distraction. You don't particularly like your life, and you spend more and more time on one side of that brackish space, which is a mix. Well, that's the sad story, but there's a good side as well. Well, the good side is that there are plenty of opportunities. Of course, it's empowerment, because there where things mix, there's more that one can do. There's control, if you like to exercise it. Because, of course, the empowerment comes with a variety of things that we may decide to do, as opposed to we cannot do them because we don't have the ability. It comes with enrichment and fulfillment. Again, I'm not talking about the internet behind the scenes. I'm talking about your experience by being online. We know all that, and I won't stop here because I know that you know, and there's no point in expanding on this. So what is the real divide here? What can we do? Remember, cut and paste, a world made of salty and sweet water, as it were. We are those mangroves living in this new environment. Opportunities, risks. What can be done? Well, quite simply, a lot of good design. Why design is the solution? It's quite straightforward. If you have one stone, imagine yourself in a universe. That's a typical sort of thought experiment by a philosopher. It's just you, the whole universe is empty, and there's a stone in front of you. Apart from being deadly boring, but you can't do anything else. You can look at the stone, but that's it. But imagine that the stone becomes stones. Even 3 stones. All of a sudden, you and the universe and the 3 stones, you can put them in different order. You can design the structure of those stones. You get the simple idea. The more constraints are lowered, and the more opportunities, affordances raise, the more design can be exercised. But remember, the digital is the cut and paste. So the two things go hand in hand. If I can cut and paste the world in different ways, and I have a certain ability to exercise my power in doing that, well, surely the counterpart is that I have an enormous amount of design that I can now do, as opposed to one stone, me, and the universe. So all of a sudden, many stones, plenty of design. Well, that's reassuring, but we're back to the original problem. So what is happiness here? Well, the design should be a design for this OnLife eudaimonia, with OnLife flourishing, happiness, fulfillment, saying, yeah, this was time well spent. You don't turn over and say, oh my goodness, how did I possibly wasted all that time looking at those cats? No, it's a sense of, that was a good thing, that I am slightly feeling bad about it. So this means that of all the innovations that are in front of us, for us, in a sort of human-centric perspective of the OnLife experience, of this sort of happiness that could be achieved in terms of fulfillment, the flourishing of the individual, whatever that individual is, and the flourishing means for that individual, well, divides the world into three possible ways. We do innovation by inventing. Someone did invent the wheel. We do innovation by discovering. Someone did go to the other side of the Atlantic. Best return on investment ever of those three carols. And someone actually did design something. So the innovation here really is a kind of a stool on three legs, where one is more significant today than the other two. I think I've given you almost all the pieces, and I'm coming almost close to the surprise for Menno. So we have the cut and paste. We have design as a counterpart for that cut and paste. We have a question, what is happiness online? Or how the internet can help us to lead more fulfilling lives. And we have a sense of innovation that today provides a better understanding of what we can do, not just in terms of invention and discovery. Those were other centuries. Ours is the century of design. So here's the second sense of happiness, and you know that happiness has many senses for many people. There's a sense in which the gods didn't give us happiness. When Pandora, good girl, instead of thinking of something else, opened that box, and she should not have opened that box, as you know, and let all those nasty things out in the universe, well, the gods had pity on us and decided to give us something to counterpart that disaster. They didn't sort of kill Pandora, they should have, worst damage ever in this universe, but they gave us the little thing called hope. And a lot of happiness is linked to that. Little hope there that makes a difference between what you can achieve and you think you might achieve tomorrow, or what may happen despite the bad news or the disappointing set of affairs. In that context, here is the last bit of happiness that I hope we might actually be able to achieve. Remember I told you we have 9 fingers. No, we have 10, and I only listed 9 cases of cut and paste. In a world where design is the way forward, where the cut and paste allows us to do much more in terms of affordances and constraints, where the digital is the new wave with respect to which we will organize our well-being, well, maybe we could have a human project that is different from the one we have pursued so far. Maybe we could detach capitalism, which we heard today is one of the greatest engines for the creation of wealth ever invented by this species on this planet, from an accidental byproduct, which is consumerism. You don't have to own all those things. It's calculated that your German average citizen owns 10,000 objects. Now, you must have heard this, read this somewhere. Well, really, maybe we don't have to go down that particular road. Maybe we can detach that thanks to the digital and combine that to something else. Instead of consuming the world, we might actually take care of the world. Well, that would be fostering instead of consuming. And if we foster, if we take care of the world, and there's a plenty of good business to be done over there, then we could start looking at firms as good citizens. And good citizens have a right to vote. This is unorthodox, but novelty in the 21st century calls for unorthodox thinking. We know, everybody knows that firms do politics in the corridor. They do it behind the scenes. They don't have to. They shouldn't. They should be in the room. a way forward in terms of happiness and how we organize a better well-being in this new world that we are constructing, the OnLife experience, the brackish waters, for us, the mangroves that need to live there, do you think that we can really build that without having a full stakeholders round the table, including all the companies that are actually building that space as we speak? I don't think so. Now, this doesn't go down well with Corbyn back home, but surely a significant role played by companies in building the environment in which we will spend increasing amount of time should be the way forward, or at least we should try. So firms as political agents for good, that is not an heresy, is a potential way forward for a world that allows for more happiness for everybody. And I'm coming to the end of my talk and the little surprise for Menno. So the digital age is the age of design. It's not the age of invention and it's not the age of discovery. Not because discovery and invention are not important. Of course they are. Now remember, these are three legs. You need all of them. But one is more important, more significant than the other. In that age, we can design the environment in such a way that our hope and our well-being are joined in a context where there's a bit of an ecology for the minds involved. We can live better in that environment if we get everybody involved. Why? Because the design of that environment, the cutting and pasting of all the elements that go into the construction of that environment, doesn't rely only on society and individuals, it also relies on strong agents called firms, companies. So maybe they should be involved in having a better environment for everybody. It's time to call them from the corridor and get them in first person in the room around the same table, so that we know also what decisions they take. So it should be really the age of good design for the eudaimonia. And here, if the technician allow me to do the little present for Menno, a philosopher cannot afford to have a dream. No, of course not. Not after Martin Luther King. But I can say a little prayer for you, surely. Gentlemen?
Shall we do a prayer, or do you think it's needed?
It was for you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I was already confused during your talk, and now I'm here, looking at my questions. So let me try to make a fool out of myself here on stage next to you. You talked about designing, and I was thinking when we started this morning, and we talked about alternative truths and facts. There are people quite capable to design their own truth and be happy about it. Is that a possible future? This is happening now. How do you look at this evolving? Do you think, a lot of people are happy about, and even knowing that it's not the real truth. So how do we deal with that? Is it okay? Is it because they're happy, it's okay?
So ultimately, because it's about our own way of feeling fulfilled, if you really, really are deep down happy, well, that's all there is, deep down. Trouble with the constructed happiness that we sometimes get involved with is that it's very brittle. In other words, it takes little to prick the bubble and make everything collapse. So the person who didn't want to see things, or believed that the earth was flat, or whatever else, that Trump was a good guy, well, sooner or later, reality hits hard. So the happiness that we want to build, certainly in this new environment, is a robust happiness, a happiness that is resilient.
Okay.
Does that help?
No.
So that when the bad news arrive, you're still there with plenty of happiness to spare, instead of saying, oh my goodness, I thought she was faithful, but she wasn't.
That kind of thing. That I understand.
Drive the message home?
Yeah, drive the message home. So a lot of people, a lot of psychologists, the recent ones are saying meaning is bringing happiness. and other ones are saying there's no meaning at all. Meaning doesn't exist. There's no, meaning for life. So is believing that there's a meaning helping you to be happy?
Not quite. The meaning discussion has one axiom which is often wrong, let's say. They all think in terms of Robinson Crusoe on an island. There is no meaning for Robinson Crusoe on an island, because meaning can only be given and received to someone else. But you can't give meaning to yourself. So I can give meaning to you, you can give meaning to me, but it takes an interaction. That's why these technologies can help a lot, because they put us together. They're called social media for a reason. And that sort of bringing together, that is potentially very meaningful. So it takes two, basically, to meaning. Even more confusion, yeah, I know.
You and me, okay, okay. And this one, I mean, I want to apologize because I think you made a mistake, but put it in a question. You talked about agency for companies and being in the space and being in the open, and they actually had to vote or something, more power to, is it more power to organization? I wrote down, do you, for instance, voting rights for Facebook or something, do we need to give companies, let them into the space and give them voting rights or something? Were you wrong or didn't I understand?
Do you think that Facebook is not already determining your life? It is. It is, of course.
Yes.
It's just that you want to see it happening in front of your eyes at the table when they raise their hand and say, this is right, this is wrong. Because they're doing it anyway. So at the moment, we are deluding ourselves into thinking, oh, of course, there's this thing called democracy, not to be found in many places, where intelligent, well-informed citizens will vote on a debate, etc. This is a story. What happens, we know perfectly well what happens. So I would like to see what happens a little bit more up in the air, open, clear, because then we know also who voted for what, when, on what issues.
Exactly. So I never have the tendency to become very practical. That's not me. But now I have this.
Don't tell me. I'm a philosopher.
Yes, I know you. You're even worse. So, but let's try. So how this human project? What do we need to do tomorrow? How will it actually go?
One suggestion among many others?
No, one suggestion.
What one suggestion?
Yeah.
A cap on the amount of money that any company can spend on advertising.
Brilliant.
End of the Cold War.
Yeah.
That's it. And the company will be very happy because company A and B, they're now fighting each other because they know that someone is earning there.
You actually gave practical advice? I've never
I know,
seen you doing that.
I made a mistake, sorry. I should have never said that. No. That was, I know, everybody happy and intelligent and, I don't know, something totally unrealistic. Yeah.
Okay, last question. Are you optimistic about the future? So we talked about happiness. There's Harari. I know. There's Harari. He's saying, the future will be more human-like and the revolution of all the good things.
Yeah. Well, I've got an answer.
First a yes or a no, and then maybe.
Well, I can quote someone. It was the priest in my local church, and he said, "Luciano, the difference between me and you is that I believe 4 days a week." So I'm optimistic 4 days a week.
Okay, and what day is it now? Is it?
It's a good day.
Thank you, it's a good day. Thank you, Luciano. Okay.